Hey guys, welcome back to the Patar Project. I'm your host Nick Patar. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. If this is your first time listening, thank you, really appreciate it. This week we are joined by Sean Weir, the man behind the Shaka Project. From a simple gesture to now a brand that has had a massive impact on people's lives. Sean joins us to talk all things mental health, his mental struggles growing up, and how the Shaka Project was started. Grateful to have Sean on the podcast today to share his story, and super grateful for everyone that tunes in and listens every week. Hope you enjoy this episode, but before we jump in, all I ask is that you pay the fee of liking, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. And if you want to support the podcast on a bit higher level, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $5 a month. Really helps me out and helps me to continue growing this podcast. All the links will be in the bio. Hope you enjoy this episode. Let's jump in. What's something you're grateful for today?
Something I'm grateful for is just the ability to get up and see my kids. I think that's a big thing for me. It's you sort of look outside the world and it's all a little bit crazy at the moment. But once you get home and you see the loved ones and you can spend time with your kids, that's pretty amazing. It sort of brings everything that's very, very busy around you back into perspective and makes you feel a little bit more sort of human as well.
Yeah, like especially during these times, I think it's bad. Like there's going to be a lot of emotions, but I think it's a good time to actually take a step back and focus on the little things in life that we kind of take for granted, like our children or our partners and that we don't really get to spend much time with because we're always working. Now we can spend time and build those relationships and connections. So you got to be able to take the positive out of the negative situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the best thing that happened out of the very, very, very first lockdown is I think a lot of people realised that they were working too much or they were relying too much on their job or their career, on their study, and they weren't taking that time to appreciate the things like going away for the weekend or going to a cafe with a friend and having a coffee. Because when all those things got taken away, we're like, fuck, I would do anything just to go out for a coffee with my friend that I haven't spoken to in 3 months or haven't seen in a couple of months. So I think it was we could take some sort of positives from that very first and second lockdown that we all went through, that there's little things that we do on the weekends that we sort of take granted for, like sleeping in and just staying at home with the kids or going to the park for an hour and then go for a walk, grabbing a coffee. Those little things that we couldn't do, you sort of gain that perspective back of how amazing and how so good those things are for your mental health as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like I made a video yesterday, and I guess as society, all we have to do is make sure we're reaching out to our friends and family and making sure that they're okay during these times, because a lot of people are going through shit and they're not gonna share it and share their emotions, because a lot of people keep their emotions inside them. So it's better to reach out and see how they're going and just try and create that community and that sense of, all right, I care for you. I really it's a tough time, but we've got to make sure everyone's supporting each other basically.
Yeah. Being empathetic is a massive thing, being empathetic for how people are reacting to this entire lockdown and this entire pandemic. Really, a lot of people, we put a post on the Shaka Project yesterday about this, people trolling others for their opinion of the lockdown or their opinion of the rules or their opinion of the entire pandemic. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and everybody's entitled to feel angry, to feel sad about it, to feel overwhelmed, stressed. We see a lot of Instagram influencers that put up a post and say, just be grateful for what we have, stop sooking. Well, you're allowed to sook. If you don't like what we're in, then feel those feelings. Don't let someone with a few extra followers tell you that you can't feel the way you feel. If this makes you angry, then be angry. If it makes you sad, be sad. If it makes you frustrated, and that's totally okay as well. So having that empathetic outlook on things with people not only close to you, but on social media, athletes, celebrities, all those sorts of people that get constantly trolled for their opinions or for their thoughts or for what they say or do. That's the shit that we just can't keep going on. It's not fair on them. It's not fair on anyone else.
No, and that's why there is such a stigma and no one wants to talk about their feelings, because every time they do, someone's putting them down for it. Like, you're allowed to have your emotions. That's totally okay.
100%. Yeah, yeah. And no matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you're, just some random bloke, or if you're, an A-grade celebrity from, an actor or a AFL footy player. If you have an opinion about something, that's fine. You can have an opinion, and you don't deserve to be abused or trolled, or your worth be diminished just because you have an opinion, or you have thoughts, or you have feelings. So I think that's what we need to do over the next 6 to 12 months, is because this isn't going away. I don't think COVID is going to go away over the next 6 months. I don't think this is going to be our last lockdown, unfortunately. So it's only up to us to get better at reacting to it, and to get better at reacting to other people's feelings and other people's thoughts about it as well.
Yeah, as long as we support each other, because you're not alone in this situation. Everyone goes through feelings, as you mentioned before. You could be a high-profile athlete or business owner, or just a parent or someone. Everyone goes through the ups and downs of life, and it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, I saw an AFL footy player. I'm not too sure what his name was. He plays for Carlton, but he put up an Instagram post about he was feeling really anxious about traveling. I think they had to fly up to Gold Coast or something like that. And the comments like, oh, you don't know what it's like. You're an AFL footy player. You get paid all this money, and precious. Harden up. You're an AFL footy player. You're a superstar. You're famous. But it's a normal person. He's got family. He's got kids that he has to leave behind. What he's doing is his career. He gets paid to play footy. It's not just a hobby that he's doing. He's got these feelings, and for people to get on there and say, well, you shouldn't feel these feelings because you're a famous AFL footy player, it's just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense, and it takes away any sort of value that person has, and any sort of feelings that person might have as well.
Yeah, it's the same as the NRL. Like, they relocated all the New South Wales teams up to Queensland, and people are like, why are you complaining? Like, you're still getting paid to do your job, but all their family is stuck in New South Wales. They were told that they can go up to Queensland, but last minute, the Queensland government said, no, like, you can't come in. So these players have gone up there. Now their families can't join them at the moment.
Yeah, and as a father, I couldn't think of anything worse. If I had to go up to Queensland for however long they're going to be there for, they could be there for the next month. A whole month without seeing your kids would be that. I'd give back all the money in the world if I was getting paid to be an NRL footy player, an AFL footy player. It wouldn't even matter. You'd want to see your kids before any sort of money, any sort of fame, anything like that. So I can just imagine how tough it would be for them.
Yeah, people seem to forget that they're actually human, and humans, family is like number one.
100%. Yeah, 100%, mate, for sure.
Now, for people who don't know you, Sean, you want to kind of give a backstory about your upbringing and your journey thus far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Ballarat, Victoria, which is a regional town, probably about an hour and a half away from Melbourne. And I had a pretty good upbringing. My parents are absolutely incredible, very supportive. When I sort of hit high school at the age of probably 15, 16, I started to go down a path of pretty much self-destruction. So I started getting into, partying and, just the generalized sort of things that you do as a teenager, go to house parties and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I started hanging out with the wrong people. So I started to get into some pretty heavy drugs. And I sort of had an attitude with school that I hated school. I hated the idea of being stuck in a room and being told what to learn, and being told this is how your life's going to pan out if you do this, if you do that. So I went there for my mates. It's pretty much the only reason I went to school, for mates, for the social aspect, for the girls. That's pretty much it. I was a bit of a social butterfly, and I always had this thing in me that I wanted to do a little bit more. I didn't like the whole outlook of life that everybody had, where it was go to school, go to university, get a degree, go get a good job, get a house, have a family, die. I didn't like that. I thought that was boring as batshit. So I had this thing in me that wanted a little bit more to life than what I was told was the norm. But unfortunately, I found drugs, and my entire life then sort of went down the path of doing that. And with drugs and alcohol comes, crime, and it comes an attitude of, you're too good for everyone else, and, was completely against any authority, rebelled against a lot of people. So sort of going through my high school years, I started to get into, doing drugs at school and drinking at school and stuff like that. Every single weekend I'd go out to house parties, I'd get in fights, I'd steal stuff, I'd break into cars. And I would do this merely because I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought it was, building up my reputation. I thought, chicks would dig it. I thought my mates thought I was cool. All this sort of stuff was going through my mind that I thought this was the right thing to do. And then at the back of my mind, I knew that it was completely wrong because I had such a good, honest upbringing. My parents taught me from right from wrong. I was petrified of my parents finding out that I was in trouble with the law, absolutely petrified. And I knew deep down it was the wrong thing to do, but I wanted to explore. I wanted to test myself. I wanted to push myself a little bit more to those extreme limits. So, unfortunately, when it comes to drugs and pushing yourself to limits, it's not a good thing. It can be pretty hazardous on not only your health but everybody around you. I started to obviously go down a really, really bad path. And one thing I promised my mum when I went into year 7, she knew that I didn't like school. She knew I hated school. And probably in year 7, 8, 9, I was going to get out of school. I thought I could just go get an apprenticeship. My cousin was a plasterer. He said, "I'll give you a job. You can be an apprentice plasterer, and we can build you up." And I made one promise to mum in year 7 that I'd complete year 12. That's all I needed to do. She said, "You don't have to get a perfect ATAR score. You don't even have to do your tests. I just want you to finish year 12." And all through high school, all through these years, that was one promise I kept. So I went all the way through high school, and finally finished my VCE. I didn't do any ATAR or anything like that. But all through this time, I had this cloud above my head that was crime, drugs, alcohol. And in year 11, I started to do personal training. So I started to study to be a personal trainer. And it was something that I really loved to do because it was something that I was generally good at, and I had a passion for it. I love going to the gym. I love improving myself. I was a pretty chubby kid in year 7, 8, and 9. So when I had the chance to, start building some muscle and feel good about myself, and sort of go down the path of being a really, really healthy person, I really, really enjoyed that. So I chased that. I became a personal trainer by the age of 18. And I was running my own business about 6 months into being a personal trainer. And it was really good. I loved it. I was working out of my mum's garage. I was getting plenty of clients. I was pretty busy. There was probably about 4 or 5 other personal trainers in Ballarat, so it wasn't a really big market. Fast forward 11 years, and there's gyms on every corner, and there's 400 PTs in town. But back then, it was great. It was amazing business. I was 18. I was making some really good money. I was loving what I was doing. The only bad thing about it was that I was a PT Monday to Friday, and I was a drug addict from about 2:30 Friday afternoon through till Sunday night. So I used to still go out every single weekend, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday nights, get on the gear and just do whatever I could to get a fix. And I sort of had this epiphany that one day it's got to become a choice whether I choose my career, which was going really well, or I continue doing what I was doing, which was going out every weekend, getting on the drugs, getting on the piss. And for some reason, logically, what the choice should be for everybody, but I just couldn't make that decision. And it got to the point where it was my 20th birthday, and I was at a pub just down the road from where I am now, actually, and I got in a fight. I was in a fight in the male toilets, and then I got escorted out of the toilets. I got into another fight. This is all stuff that I don't even remember. I was on a lot of drugs that night, and eventually I got myself out of this hotel, this pub, and went down to the corner of the street. And when you're on such an amount of drugs, you think you're absolutely invincible. The male toxic sort of masculinity kicks in, and you think you're brick shit house and nobody else can take you on, and you want to fight everyone, and all this sort of testosterone running through my body. And I got in another fight, and it just turns out that there was police standing right there, and it took about 5 or 6 police officers to bring me down, and they pepper sprayed me. And I'm not too sure if you've ever been pepper sprayed, mate, but it is the worst pain that you can ever experience. Like, I would never ever forget it. It was absolutely terrible. It literally takes your breath away. You can't see, you can't breathe, you can't speak. It is just absolute agony. And they pepper sprayed me, put me in the back of the divvy van, and I spent the night in the drunk tank at the Ballarat police station. And that was probably the worst night of my life. It was absolutely terrible. And probably the next 12 months after that was really the start of my my mental health journey. So the morning after that happened, I had to call my mum. She came and picked me up from the police station, which was probably one of the hardest things I've had to do. And she came and picked me up, and we had a chat about it. And I was obviously extremely embarrassed. I had scars all over my face from the fights, and I was just, when you have a really, really bad hangover and you start to remember things you did the night before, and you think, oh God, you're such an idiot. Imagine that times 100. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe you just got locked up. And Ballarat, it's a pretty big city, but it's a very, very small community. So everybody knows everybody. And when you run a business in Ballarat and you do something like I did, it gets around very quick. So within a week, 2 weeks, everybody I knew about Sean Weir, the personal trainer, the fitness fanatic, was on drugs, was high as a kite, was absolutely blind drunk, and he was fighting cops. And it's not the best look for a business owner. So within the next 2 weeks, I lost pretty much my entire client list. All my clients just stopped replying to me. They just pretty much dumped me on the spot. It turned out that one of the police officers that arrested me was actually one of my clients. So I definitely didn't get her back as a client. And my entire business that I built up over the 2 years before that had just completely crumbled. And that was really, really tough. And, as I said before, I was thinking about that point of, I follow my career or I continue on this drug path. And it pretty much gave me the answer. It said, you continued on the drug path, and this is what happened. You lost your career. So that was a massive wake-up call for me. I was obviously still living at home with mum, and I had no business. I had no money. I was extremely, extremely depressed. I'd had depression for about 2 or 3 years before that. Was on medication, but after this night, it just absolutely skyrocketed. And probably the next 12 months to 2 years was a really, really hard couple of years. And I used to do this thing where I used to go for drives. That was my outlet. I used to get in the car, whether it be a Friday night or a Saturday or a Sunday. I used to just get in the car and just drive by myself, no music. I used to just go for 2, 3, 4, 6 hours and just drive as far away from Ballarat as I could. And it was around this time where I was really, really suicidal, and it got to the point where, if I went to Melbourne and stayed in a hotel, I'd have to make sure that I wasn't staying in a high-rise hotel. It got to the point where, if I was by myself, I had to make sure that I wasn't around anything that I could harm myself with. And there was one day where I was out at a bush track just near Ballarat here, and I was in my car and I was just driving around this bush track, and I pulled over and I just started crying, and I just thought, this is it. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I had no other options. I still had no business, no money, no passions, nobody in my life. And I was on the side of the road, this dirt road here, and I looked up, and about 50 metres in front of me was this massive tree, this huge tree. You can't miss it. And first thing I thought was, that's it. That's my answer. I'll just put the foot down and then end it all. That's all I need to do. And when that crossed my mind, when it went through my mind, it was this pure calm went through my whole body. And this intense feeling of almost, like finally I found the answer and finally I've got something that I can do and that I can do myself. And so I put my foot down, I closed my eyes, I directed my car straight for this tree. It was only probably about 15 seconds. It felt like about 5 minutes. And eyes were closed, foot straight on the pedal. And then I heard this massive crash and I sort of felt the car sort of rock and sort of, decelerate really, really quickly. Obviously took the foot off the foot off the accelerator and slammed the foot on the brakes. And I opened my eyes and I was in all this bush and shrubbery and all I could see was like greenery. And the funny thing about this entire story is I got out of the car to make sure that I hadn't scratched my car. And I was about to total my fucking car. And the first thing I thought was I hope I don't scratch my car. And what I discovered is when I was heading for this tree, about 3 to 5 meters before the tree was a massive ditch, which I couldn't see. It was over a bit of a hill. And as I hit the ditch, my front wheel sort of hit the ditch and just speared me out of the direction of this massive tree and into the shrubbery right next to this big tree. And I saw that and I collapsed. I just thought that shouldn't have happened. I should have cleared that. I should have went straight into a tree. I've never been so sure about something in my life. And now I'm standing here. I'm still alive. My car's fine. I had a few scratches. My car's fine. I'm fine. I need to go and get help. Like, I just couldn't believe that I was so close to doing it. And that was a really big start for me to go and seek some professional help. I consider myself the luckiest person in the world that happened. And I spent the next couple of weeks in hospital seeking some pretty intense professional help. And it's something that I always live with and always remember. And I sometimes drive out there when I'm having a bad day. I will drive out there and just have a look and remember that moment and remember how lucky I was. And it makes me sort of grateful that I'm still here and I've been able to do a fair bit of things in my life that I'm happy with, that I'm proud of. I've got my 2 beautiful kids now that I wouldn't have if I didn't hit that ditch. So it's something that I always think back of. And after that, I started to get back into my career. I thought, this is, I've been given another chance. I can sit here and I can continue to go down this path, or I can take it on and I can chase my career again. I absolutely love personal training. I need to get back into it. So I did. I thought this whole being locked up thing is always going to be there, but eventually people are going to forget about it. So I pretty much put my head down, started to get back into my career, started build up my personal training career again, really started to look after my mental health, off the drugs completely. And about 2 years later, I opened my first gym. And that was a really big moment for me. It was a really overwhelming moment because I didn't think I'd ever be able to do anything like that, especially through high school. I was never the smartest kid. I didn't know how to open a business or start a business or run a business. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I just continued to chase that passion and follow what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be and who I wanted to be as well. And the first day of opening that gym was such a massive move for me, and for so many reasons. But I thought back to all those moments where I wanted to take my own life, and then I remember standing there opening the door of the gym and thinking how grateful I was that I'm still here and that I did seek help. And that I did get off the drugs, and that I did, get off, drinking every single day and getting on the gear every single day. So fast forward about 3 or 4 years, and I've sort of got to the point where I wanted to give back when it comes to mental health. Mental health, it sounds a bit strange, but mental health gave me so much. It gave me so much reflection on life. I don't think if I went through any of that stuff with my mental health or with my addictions, I'd be doing what I'm doing today. And that's obviously the Shaka Project. So I'd always run events through the gyms. I'd always did fundraisers for mental health. We did like a 24-hour treadmill challenge, which was really cool. And we always did these events, and we raised heaps of money and gave it to big organizations. And remember this one event that we did, and we raised, I think it was close to 10 grand. And we gave it to, I won't say the organization name, but we gave it to a big organization. And pretty much we got an email back and it just said, thanks for your donation. And that was it. That was all we got back. And I looked at it, I thought, fuck, like I've had people in my gym community give up their time, give up their hard-earned money. All these people that organised this event gave up their money, their time, everything, their passion. Had people coming and crying about mental health, and opening up and doing all this and doing all that. We gave all this money and we got an email back saying, thanks for your donation. I thought, no, that's not right. I couldn't live with that. So I thought, how can we do something that has some sort of personal effect? We can actually see the effects of what we're doing. How can we do something that has some sort of legacy? And how can we do something that isn't particularly about raising money, but more about raising awareness? And that's how the Shaka Project was first sort of brought up. I thought, let's do something to do with mental health. And I thought T-shirts is the best way to do it. And it's like a permission slip. That's what we're aiming for. If you can see somebody wearing a Shaka T-shirt down the street, automatically that person has some sort of empathy for mental health, and that you can go and talk to them about your mental health. If you see someone at the pub, wearing a Shaka beanie or a Shaka hoodie or something like that, automatically that bloke has some sort of understanding, and if you're feeling pretty shitty, you can go up and talk to that guy. And that's exactly what we want. We want that conversation. We want that community. And it started off in my lounge room, and I basically wanted a few mates to get involved. I thought this would be a really cool thing for Ballarat. I think I purchased it was 30 T-shirts, 30 singlets, and a couple of hoodies. And I launched it, and within 24 hours, we'd sold out of everything. Our first initial post went viral. We had 10,000 shares and went all across Australia. We had orders from all across Australia within the first 24 hours. And I was like, what the fuck has happened here? Like, what is this? And then I realized, I'm like, this is so much bigger than I first imagined. I wanted my mates to see this. I wanted my family and friends to see this, and for them to be able to open up. But now I can see that the country needs this. There's so many men in Australia that need a conversation starter, that need to have this conversation about mental health. And as soon as that happened, I put the foot down pretty much, and I put the foot on the accelerator. And I thought, let's make this something really, really big that so many people can get behind. People can join our community. People can feel safe in our community, can have this conversation, and let's get this conversation to a point where it's some sort of normality. So blokes can have a conversation about mental health just as easy as they can have a conversation about, the footy game they just watched or what's happening at work that week. So since then, it's been 3 years since we started the Shaka Project, and we've just continued to grow our message and our brand, and it's taken over my life completely, which is something I'm very, very grateful for. It's something that I'm super proud of. Everybody that does everything with the Shaka is so proud of what we can do and how many people we can personally get to. We're able to control what we do with funds and what we do with the community and how we give back, which is something that I've always wanted. We can see the effects of stuff that we're doing as well. So it's been an incredible journey, like absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful for everybody that's ever got behind it, whether you've shared a post, tagged someone in a post, purchased a product, whatever it might be. But the community that we've built is just absolutely amazing. It's changed my life completely.
Dude, thank you for sharing that. Like, it's crazy. Like, I've been following your brand for a while now, and you just mentioned like you nearly ended your life wanting to crash into that tree, and to think that you wouldn't have achieved what you have achieved and impact the people that you have if you hit that bloody tree. It's crazy to think that.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I often think about that, and often think about, like there's so many what ifs, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you look back at your life, and I often get asked, do you regret, your drug addiction, or do you regret getting locked up? But I don't. I think if I didn't do any of that stuff, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. if I didn't go through all that stuff with my mental health, I definitely wouldn't be doing the Shaka Project. And I think this is the same with everything, career wise, is if you don't have a passion for something, you're never going to be able to do it. And I've done it with the gyms. I've got a genuine passion for personal training. So I was able to do that every single day. And then I've got a genuine passion for mental health and raising awareness. So I'm able to do this every single day. But I think the reason I've got such a passion for it is because it's almost taken me a few times, or I've lost friends to suicide. And it's given me that passion and that drive to be able to do something like the Shaka Project and continue to do it every single day. So yeah, when you look back at those moments and you think, I could have lost it all. And if I did go through that, or if I didn't hit that ditch, none of this would be here. And it's frightening. It's really, really scary because, where I am at the moment with everything, I'm at a stage in my life where I'm starting to find this purpose and this sort of path that I know that this is what I was meant to be on. And back then I couldn't see that. And I think when you're in the moment of a really, really deep depression, you don't see the next day, you don't see the next week, you don't see the next 10 years. But, that was probably 12 years ago. Oh, no, probably 12 years ago, probably about 10 years ago that I did that. And I definitely wouldn't have been sitting there thinking about, actually in 10 years from now, you're going to be doing the Shaka Project, which is all about mental health. I couldn't even see the next 5 minutes. All I could see was that tree. So it's a wonderful thing, hindsight, but it's amazing to keep you grounded as well.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer of everything happens for a reason, and talking to you about that, it's sad how, and I've spoken to a few other people that have had similar stories. It's sad how you can be in that mindset that you're just okay with ending it all. You're calm about it. I don't fully understand. You probably don't fully understand it, but it's very sad to think that people go through that they're just okay with ending their life.
Yeah, it is. And I was on a podcast a few days ago talking about this exact subject, about when you are in that really, really deep depression. And I think it's really good to talk about because there could be people listening to this right now that are in this stage. And as I said about the Melbourne, whenever I went to Melbourne, I used to, if I was at a hotel, the first thing I would do, when you walk into a hotel room and you check out, oh, sweet, nice view, good bed, massive bathroom. It's, pretty exciting to see what your room's like. First thing I'd do is go to the balcony and have a look. And, I think that'd be a good place to do it. First thing I'd think of. And it was a really calming feeling. It was almost as calm as going, oh, that looks like a nice bed, or, oh, the TV's big. First thing I thought was, that'd be a good spot. And again, in hindsight, that's fucking terrifying. And it's really scary, but it's something that someone right now is going through those feelings and thoughts right now, and they're going through these things, and they're in this calm space where those things go through their mind. So I think it's so important to talk about it, because back when I was going through it, there was never any podcasts on mental health. There was never any much conversation about mental health. It was such a stigma. Nobody talked about it. And I think if we can continue talking about it, continue doing, chats like this, podcasts, posts, content, whatever it might be, and somebody that is going through these moments right now can see this, they know that they're not alone. They know that they're not, crazy. And I think that's a big thing with mental health is if you get a bloke that's really, really suffering, he thinks he is losing his mind. He's what the fuck is wrong with me? All my mates are over there. They're having a great time. They're laughing. They're having fun. And I've losing my mind. I'm going crazy. I don't want to be here. But little do you know that 3 out of 4 of those blokes are feeling the exact same thing as you are. And that's what we need to know. We need to know that conversation is open, that dialect is open. So, hey, boys, I'm feeling shit over here. Is anyone else feeling shit? And you can have that conversation. So if we can make people feel less alone, a little bit less crazy, a little bit less like they're doing this by themselves and they've lost their mind, I think we can really, really make a difference. And that's like 100%. If I had that back when I was going through all these feelings, I think it would have ended a lot different.
Yeah, that's all we can do is just keep talking about it and spreading awareness around it, especially in times like this, like we mentioned before. Like, I'm a big believer that mental health's going through the roof and it's going to take more lives than this virus ever will. But, we just got to support each other and reach out to each other and make sure that everyone's okay.
100%, mate. And it's we talk about this a lot in our presentations. Is it's really good to look after your mates. It's the bloke thing is to look after your mate. If he's in a fight, you look after him. If he's in trouble, you look after him. But the new thing should be looking after your mate's mental health. Checking in on him, checking in on yourself, obviously as well. But having that toxic masculinity thing, which we talk about a lot, getting that out the door and just being a good mate. Not calling your mate a pussy because he doesn't want to have a beer tonight. Not calling your mate a pussy because he doesn't want to come out tonight. Checking in with him, saying, all right, you don't want to come out. Are you okay? You don't want to get on the beers. Are you okay? Even down to if your mate's had a rough week, he's struggling, not being the mate that says, all right, let's go get absolutely blind drunk, because we all know that's not the best thing to do when you're going through some shit. And this all comes down to this masculinity, this stigma. Mental health stigma is so much bigger than you're a pussy if you talk about your feelings. It's so much bigger than that. It is down to these little things, like I just said, like allowing your mate to talk about his feelings and to say, hey, I don't want to go out drinking tonight. And you not being that mate that says, don't be a pussy, let's go get pissed, you've had a bad week. You being that mate that says, you know what, I don't think you should drink tonight because you've had a bad week. I don't think you should, I know you want to go out and get drunk and to drink your feelings away, but I don't think it's a good idea. That's being a mate.
Yeah.
Your mate isn't the mate that says, let's go get absolutely sloshed because you've had a shit week. That's not a mate. That's a bloke that just wants to get, just wants an excuse to get drunk. Your mate is someone that says, I don't think it's a good idea that you drink. I don't think it's a good idea that we do drugs anymore, or you do drugs anymore, or I'm worried about how much drugs you're doing, not let's go do more drugs. It's this whole masculine thing that we need to completely change, because that is what is losing so many men. I've heard so many stories about blokes that have taken their own lives, and I've spoken to their friends, and they're like, oh, we went out Friday night and he was really happy. We went out Saturday night, he was really happy. And then Sunday took his own life. I've heard that way too often. And you reverse back and say, all right, what was his week like? I had a really, really, really rough week. So Friday night we went out, got on drugs. Saturday night we went out, got on drugs. Sunday, come down, depression, takes his own life. And that's just enough, that's enough reason to check in with your mates when they're having that rough week. And if it gets to Friday, saying, let's, come over, we'll watch the footy, we'll have one or two beers and we'll have a chat. Not let's go get absolutely blind and have a bender and go out all weekend. Because that's how we're losing so many blokes. That's how we're losing so mmany people, is by justifying mental health with drugs, alcohol, partying. That male, she'll get over it, he'll be right, move on. Just have another beer, all that sort of attitude towards everything. That's killing more men than mental health in general is. 100%.
Yeah. Is it mental health getting better with the younger generations? Because I feel like we are talking about it more, and it's the older generations that are kind of stuck in their old ways and not talking about their feelings. Is it affecting the older generations or the younger generations more? Do you know stats around that?
Yeah, look, the older generation. So we sort of look at, we have a program called Old Dogs, New Tricks, and it's pretty much based between sort of 35 and up. So 35 to sort of 65 years of age. And these are the blokes that have, they grew up with their fathers that, no mental health awareness whatsoever. And again, this is none of their fault. You go to a 50-year-old bloke now and talk about mental health. Majority of them will say, it's fucking bullshit. Just harden up, you'll be right, get on with it. It's not their fault. They're not being an asshole. They're not being a prick. They're being ignorant, and it's ignorant is taught. You're grown up and you're taught these things as you grow up. Their father would have grown up Their father's father would have gone through stuff that they were like, all right, we're the man. You just got to take it on the chin and keep going. So it's not actually their fault that they're going through these emotions and they have these attitudes towards mental health. And it's really tough to change their mind. Trust me, it's really, really tough, but it's also something that they are coming around to and they are sort of opening up. So it's a lot harder for the older generation to open up about these things because they've been taught not to open up about these things. So I think the conversation that we're having now, how big the mental health conversation is now is so good because we are teaching the younger generation that it is okay to open up. So in 20 years, we can have these people, my kids are only 7 and 3. If they can get to high school and be able to have these conversations openly and be able to just talk about their feelings and talk about their mental health, then we've taught them that. That's that ignorance that's been taught throughout their years. And that's exactly what we're after. So it's become a lot more common, obviously, in the last 10 years to talk about mental health, which is a great thing. But it's such a long way to go. And it's really hard to change people's mind and really hard to get people to talk. But if we can focus on the future generations coming through and change the entire stigma and the entire norm around the conversation, I think it's going to get better. But yeah, that older age group, it is really tough. But it's not their fault. You can't blame them for not wanting to talk or thinking it's all rubbish, because that's exactly what they've grown up with. They've grown up with being a man of the house. Men are tough, men are this, men are that. And their fathers were taught that, their fathers were taught that. And that's just the way they've been brought up. So to change their mind about something that they've spent the last 50 years believing, it's not going to happen overnight. And we can't expect it to happen overnight. But if we can do our best and continue that conversation, continue talking to them and continuing to allow them to speak up, then I think that they eventually will.
Yeah, it's hard as well because we're focusing on, kids and getting their mindset right. But then when they're going home, their parents are stuck in that old mindset. So it's like clashing heads and it's hard to try and get progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have seen that a fair bit too. It's I think there's a lot of brave parents out there that are having that conversation early with their kids about mental health. And this is something I always talk about. One of the greatest gifts that my father ever gave me was he suffered very bad mental health pretty much his entire life. And when I was about 12 years old, he actually I was probably a bit young. I was probably about 10 years old. And he sat myself and my brother down and he said, I'm sick. And the first thing I thought was, he's got cancer and he's gone. We're going to lose dad. And he said, I'm sick. It's a sickness in my head. It's called depression. And sometimes I'll be really happy and sometimes I'll be really sad. It's not your fault. It's not your brother's fault. It's not your mum's fault. It's just something I've got. And he had this conversation with us. And at the time I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? What is this depression thing? I had no idea. I couldn't Google it back then. I don't think I even had a mobile phone. You have to use dial-up internet back then. And I just thought, okay, this depression thing, and sometimes we'll be happy, sometimes we'll be sad. But what happened is when I got to the age of 15, 16, and I started to go through these feelings myself, automatically I could identify what I was going through because I had that conversation with dad when I was 10 years old. I had some sort of understanding. I knew what it was. And the scariest thing about mental health sometimes when people start going through mental health issues is it hits them and they think, what the hell is this? What is happening to me? I'm losing control. I can't get out of bed. I can't wake up. I'm always tired. I hate life, hate going to work. What is going on with me? But I was extremely lucky because when I started to go through those feelings, straight away I knew, I think this is depression. I think this is what dad went through. And I was able to go and speak to him and I was able to go and seek help, and automatically I knew what it could be. So I think that's really, really important. And that's why when we do school programs, we start that conversation early within, grade, year sevens. We talk to year sevens about mental health. And, we've had a few teachers say, I don't think you should be talking to year sevens about it. But I think that's ridiculous. The amount of year sevens that we've lost to suicide in the last 12 months in Australia is just terrifying, absolutely terrifying, especially as a father. If we could start this conversation to 5-year-olds, we would. I say to my 7-year-old, if you're feeling sad, mate, cry. And he's a boy. If you're feeling angry, feel those feelings. And if you don't want to be somewhere, you need to speak up. Or if you're going through something and you want to speak to somebody, then we'll speak to somebody. It's so important to get into their head these feelings of being comfortable where they are and who they're around, and being able to talk about their feelings and not having that stop crying, stop being a girl, stop being a pussy. You're 7-year-old, you're boy, you're a big boy now, stop crying. You can't have that anymore. That's not a way that we need to treat our kids as they get through the years, because then they get to that high school years and they start going through these feelings and they think, Dad always told me not to be a girl. Dad always told me that I can't cry because I'm a man. And that is absolutely dangerous. That's super dangerous. So if we can change that now with high school kids or primary school kids, and we can really allow them to feel their feelings and talk about their feelings, then I think the next generation of mental health warriors can come through and can really make a difference.
Doing an awesome job, man. It's so important to get to kids at a young age because, as you said, if they're getting taught, don't cry, you're a girl. And as you said, when they get older, then they're not going to share their emotions. It's just going to build up inside, and it's going to be shown through drugs and alcohol and going down the wrong path.
Yeah, 100%. And like as parents, we guide our kids to a certain extent. We obviously can't tell them what to do with their life and where to go, but we give them the tools to make their own decisions, make their own failures, make their own success. And that's really, really frightening thing. That was the scariest thing about becoming a father is, you come to the realization that you're going to control this little person's life for at least 15 years before they start becoming an attitude-riddled teenager and they hate you like I was. But you can sort of, the way you speak around your kids and the way you act around the kids is going to have a massive effect on them. So, you got to be careful. You got to pull yourself up sometimes. I sort of make sure that I'm being respectful to myself when I'm around the kids. And I've got a little daughter and I want her to grow up and feel beautiful and feel confident and feel like that she's every bit worthy in this world than anyone else, and have that equality for her as well. And I've got to make sure that she knows that she's beautiful and that she's talking to herself and she's being kind to herself throughout her years. Because I grew up with the girls that were so mean to themselves, that used to hate themselves because they were a little bit bigger or they were a little bit taller or, they didn't have, what this girl had. And it's really scary now with social media because everybody, compares themselves to everybody else. And, you want to make sure that obviously my daughter one day eventually is going to be on social media when she gets a little bit older. And before that happens, I want to make sure that she knows that she's beautiful no matter what she looks like. She knows that she's a beautiful person, no matter what path she chooses, no matter who she turns out to be, and that social media doesn't actually, matter when it comes to what she wants to do in her life. And people on social media aren't any better than her or aren't this superiority to her just because they have a few more followers. So it's a scary, scary world out there, and it's something you really really fear for when you're a father, but you try and make them comfortable and allow them to get out there and experience heartbreak, experience these things in the world, and being able to allow them to make those decisions and be okay with what they're doing as well.
Yeah, and like as a parent, you just got to be a role model. Like if you want them to feel good about themselves, well then you as a parent, you got to speak that positivity and feel good about yourself as well, because they look up to you and they're like, oh, if Dad's feeling good about himself, well, I should feel good about myself as well.
Absolutely. It comes down to authenticity. And that's a massive thing with mental health, being authentically passionate about mental health. This is something we see, we post about this a fair bit on the Shaka Project as well, and it probably goes back to as well just before I started the Shaka Project, I saw, like you see it on Facebook all the time. Like if you have people put a post up, copy and paste if you have compassion for mental health, and they put it on their status.
Yeah.
And it used to make me so angry. I'm like, I'm sorry, but what is that actually doing? That's not achieving anything but getting you a few extra likes.
They're just posting to make themselves feel better.
Exactly right. And what's even worse is they'll post that and then they'll jump on an AFL footy player's Instagram and roast him for not kicking the goal, or saying, oh, he's a shit player, he should be playing, or roasting a celebrity, or roasting their mates and stuff like that. Like, you can't put that post up if you're going to go on to in the next 5 minutes, you're going to go and call your mate a pussy because he's not coming out for a drink, or you're going to call an AFL footy player a faggot because you don't like him. You know, that shit I cannot stand. And it comes, again, authenticity. You know, if I got to the point in my life where I started to rebel against people and started to, call people out on social media and do this and do that, I'd finish the Shaka Project. I'd just completely finish it because it's not authentic. I can't have the Shaka Project and not be empathetic about, certain things in the world. And I think it's probably something I've realised in the last 12 months is that if I'm going to do the Shaka Project, and if I'm going to do this for a very long time, I need to understand a lot more things. You know, I need to be aware of a lot more things. Mental health isn't just depression, anxiety. You know, it's the amount of people that mental health affects. The LGBTQI community, the different sort of nationalities that you come across. All these aspects around mental health is so much bigger than what we first imagined, what we first started. And we have to be authentically about everything. Not have to be, we want to be. You know, we want to make sure that everybody in our community is welcome in our community. If we were all about the Shaka Project and put all these posts up and then we're against gay rights, there's no point in having the Shaka Project. If we were doing all this and then we're discriminative against First Nations people, Aboriginals, then there's no point doing the Shaka Project because they've got one of the highest suicide rates in Australia. So if we didn't believe in that, if we didn't have some sort of empathy and understanding and a real passion for First Nations people, then there's absolutely no point in us doing the Shaka Project. So we're so about authenticity, and we want everybody else to be about authenticity as well. If they're going to share our stuff, if they're going to share, post about mental health and everything like that, and then they're going to go and talk shit about someone on social media or bully people, or use gay as an insult or anything like that, then send our t-shirt back, we'll send you the money back. We're not about that. We'd rather you be authentically a good person looking after one another than just wanting to get a bit of clout about yourself because you're behind this mental health initiative. So we're super, super passionate about that, is getting people to be real about what they believe in and actually believe it, not for anyone else's approval, but because they genuinely believe it.
Yeah, and you have to be authentic these days. If not, you're going to get caught out so quickly on social media.
Yeah, 100%. That is so accurate. Yeah, there's so many pages, like mental health awareness pages, it's great. It's incredible. But there's so many out there that are, they'll do a few really, really good posts about mental health, and then they'll have one post which is just completely demoralizing their entire message. And I actually came across one the other day where the owner of a mental health awareness page, who I follow the actual owner, they put up a post pretty much taking the piss out of depression and saying that it was something to do with the fact that depression could be cured by pizza or something like that. They put up a post saying depression cured because I've got pizza. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but you can't say that depression be cured by having a pizza and then go and post about this on your mental health page saying depression's so important and depression awareness and mental health awareness. You're taking the piss out of what you're trying to raise awareness for. And that's not authentic. And people do. They will catch you out. They will see that you're in this for the wrong reasons. They'll see that you're just trying to get some clout, some likes, and some shares, and some sort of popularity in the community. But you will get caught out straight away, and you'll see it as well when a mental health awareness page starts, and then after 2 weeks of like really good posting and good content, they just stop. They'll just, every maybe once a month, they'll put a post up. They're the people, aren't doing it for the right reasons. They're like, oh, fuck, I should put a post up. It's been a month, I'll put a post up. We put 3 posts up a day because it's our absolute passion to continue to get the message out there. We put as many posts up as we possibly can. If we could put a post up every single hour, we could, because if that could reach somebody that is suffering and that is going through some tough times, then that's what we want. And that's our absolute passion. It takes us 3 minutes to put a post up. But it's an authentic post. It's not to get likes. It's not to get shares. It's to target someone that is walking into a hotel room and looking out the window, or that is sitting in their car looking at a tree and seeing a post that says you matter. And it might not affect them one bit, but it could affect someone else completely. And that's all we want. We don't want shares. We don't want 1 million followers. We don't want any of this sort of stuff. We just want people to see our content and be able to understand that they're not the only person. They're not alone. They can seek help. It's okay to feel these feelings as well. So being authentic is such an important thing. And I think the day that if I don't think it will ever happen, but if I ever wake up and I feel like I'm not being authentic anymore, I'll just stop doing the Shaka Project. I think there'd be no point in me doing it anymore if I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. And I'll just stop it straight away.
Yeah. And like, I'm also a believer in, you got to have empathy for those people that are, being trolls and stuff like that, because they obviously have internal issues, and like for them to take their time out of their day to write those nasty comments, they also got their own shit going on. So you got to have some sort of empathy towards them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've, in the last 3 years, we've copped a little bit of flack from people. Every now and then someone will write on our page and like, oh, you're making money off mental health, or this is such a ridiculous idea, and, you scumbags. And we've been abused many, many times. And, we could do one or two things. We could reply back and call them all the names under the sun, and say, you don't know what you're fucking talking about, piss off, get off our page. Or we can be kind and message them and say, hey, look, I'm sorry you feel this way. There's been times where I've given them my personal phone number and say, give me a call. I want to actually explain what our company's about. 98% of the time they don't call me, but I've given them that option. I've given them that option to actually see what we're all about. And, I've said to them, are you doing okay? Is there anything we can help you with? We had a comment, I think it was in our first year, which was it was a pretty big comment, and it was pretty much paying us out. And I messaged him off my personal page, my personal Facebook, and checked in and asked if he was okay. And it turns out he wasn't. And then within, half an hour, we were chatting on the phone, and he said, I'm really, really sorry about my comment. I shouldn't have said it. I was really angry, and I was in an emotional state. I saw the post and I just went nuts. I said, no, that's fine. It's okay. And, we can have a chat, and we still chat to this day. He's a fan of the Shaka Project now. He gets amongst it. And it's something that you can do. And something that my mother always taught me, and she's always said since I was a kid, is kill them with kindness. And it's such an important thing when somebody's, they might be trolling you or trolling somebody else. There's no better comeback than kindness. If you can be kind to them and be friendly with them and be understanding with them and show some sort of empathy towards them, it absolutely stuns them. They're like, oh, fuck, hang on, like they're being kind to me. What do I do now? Plus, it allows them to think, maybe I actually do need to have a chat to this person, or open up, or discuss what I'm actually going through. So I think, it's absolutely super important to be able to have that conversation with people, and not just getting on your back foot every time. And again, that comes down to authenticity as well. If we had to go at people and said, you're a fucking idiot, mate, get off our page, that's online trolling, that's online bullying. And we can't say that and then put a post up online bullying, because we've just done the exact opposite. So you're absolutely right. It's so important to check in with every single person, no matter what they're going through, no matter who they are, because the ones that are doing the hurting are usually hurting the most.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you can't make everyone happy, but just have empathy.
Absolutely, empathy is such an important thing, and you can't make everybody happy. But we've, as I said, for like 3 years, we've had a few people that have been pretty upset with us, but probably 98% of the people have come back and have now understood what we're all about and understood about our project and our company and what we do with our messages and stuff like that too. So you're never going to make everybody happy, but it's not our job to make everybody happy. Our job is to ignite the conversation. And if we have a few haters out there, that's completely fine. I think every sort of business or company or brand or anywhere is always going to have someone's opinion. And as I said at the start of the podcast, you have to respect other people's opinions, and they're allowed to have that too.
Yeah. Now, going back, what was it like sharing your story for the first time?
It was pretty revealing, and it was pretty tough, to be honest. The first time I said it in public, I was the keynote speaker at a ball, like a mental health awareness ball, and my mother was in the crowd, and Mum actually didn't know about the incident with the tree. She had no idea. And when I got up, I sort of contemplated, should I say it? Should I talk about it? And then as I was speaking, I thought, fuck it, let's just do it. Let's just see how it goes. I think it's an important message to get out there for people that may be going down that road. So I said it, and I could see her in the crowd just like going white. She's like, oh my God, I had no idea about this. And she came up to me after and gave me a big cuddle, and she said, I had no idea about that, but thank you so much for telling me. And it was obviously a really, really tough night, but the amount of people that came up to me after and thanked me for sharing and thanked me for opening up and allowed them to be able to open up about their stories and allowed them to open up about what they've gone through. And I think everybody has a story and everybody deserves to tell it. And I think if I kept that story a secret, then again, authenticity, there'd probably be no point in me doing what I'm doing today with the Shaka Project. I think it's super important to get that story out there and for other people to get their story out there and to be able to make people feel a little bit less alone. And I think probably the biggest thing that I struggled with coming out about that story, and obviously a few people knew about it, but I didn't want everybody in my life that I was close to sort of every time I went for a drive, I didn't want them to think, he's going for a drive, is he going to be okay? I didn't want people to sort of link that up with he's going through a tough time or he's going to take his own life. And that's what I really struggled with. I didn't want to say to Mum on a Sunday afternoon, I'm just going to go for a drive, and then her panic the entire time that I wasn't going to come back. So that was something that I was really afraid of. But then it got to the point where I thought, I'm not that person anymore. I've gone through all this sort of stuff, and my mother has this trust in me that, if I'm going through tough times, if I'm going through those moments and those feelings and those thoughts again, that I'm going to go and speak to her, or I'm going to go seek help, or I'm going to go and talk to a mate or talk to a family friend about what I'm going through. So that was a really scary thing, but I think it was super important to get out there, speak about it, as something that I still do to this day, obviously on podcasts or in person at events. And it can be tough for people to hear, but again, I think those tough conversations are what ignite the important conversations.
Yeah, and by you sharing your story, it allows other people to feel comfortable sharing their own stories too.
Absolutely. And there's some incredible stories out there. You've probably heard some amazing ones on your podcast, and I've had some incredible stories on my podcast as well about mental health and about just general, things that people have gone through and things that when we're growing up, we don't even think of, and we don't even, it doesn't even cross our minds. I've got one of my closest friends is, absolutely beautiful man. He's an incredible bloke. And his childhood was just traumatic, absolutely traumatic, the things that he went through. And you think back and think about my childhood, you know, I had two loving parents. I had a great family, great brother, great household. And when I was growing up, I didn't think any different. I thought everybody had the same upbringing as me. I thought everybody had two parents that loved and adored them, and a great family home that was just amazing and comfortable. And then at the same time, one of my greatest friends now, at the same time as I was a kid going through all these things, he was going through absolute hell. And I didn't even know him back then. So you think about all those stories, and it's so important to hear everybody's stories, because there'll be someone else out there that has gone through the same trauma as he has, or there's someone else out there that has sat in their car and thought, this is it, I'm going to drive myself into a tree. There's somebody out there that has gone through these thoughts and emotions. So if we can allow those people to hear that they're not the only ones that are going through these feelings, then I think that can make a massive difference.
Yeah. And like as society, I believe we are kind of naive to the whole mental health thing, especially if you haven't gone through it. Like myself, I was naive to it all. And then I started this podcast and I had a few people on talk about, you know, the mental health journey. I was like, oh shit, like this actually happens to people. And that's why this whole podcast is now focused on mental health, because I know the importance of it now. And I'm so happy that I'm not naive anymore, and I know it's true. So that's why I want to spread as many stories as possible.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are naive, mate. It's something that's probably due to that stigma as well. You know, if we sort of go back 10 years ago, you know, if I went to my mates 10 years ago and said, boys, I'm really struggling, they would have said, well, harden the fuck up. And it would have been, you know, the pretty normal thing to do. But fast forward 10 years now, and whenever I say to my mates, I'm really struggling, within 5 minutes, they're at my place. They've got a beer for me. We're going to sit down, watch the footy, and we're going to have a chat. Or they've come around, all right, let's go out for a coffee. You know, come over. I'll be there soon. It's a really supportive world we're in now, and that's all due to the stigma. You know, the stigma is going away, and something that I think is super important is in your friendship group is having that mate that breaks the ice, and having that mate that talks about mental health and encourages the conversation. And we do this presentation to footy clubs, especially. It's called Breaking the Ice, and it's pretty much something that I did a few years ago. And I invited a few mates around to my place. I said, all right, boys, come around Friday night. We're going to watch the footy. Bring a few beers. Actually, no, I said I'll supply the beer. So I'll get a slab of beer. We'll get some pizza and watch the footy. And they all came around, and there was no beer. There was pizza, and the footy was on. I turned the footy off. I said, right, boys, I lied to you all. We're actually going to have a chat about mental health. And there was about 6 blokes there, and they all just like scrunched up their nose and went, what the fuck are you talking about? We're like, we're here to have a drink and watch the footy. And I think the discussion about mental health went for about 2 minutes, and then turned the footy on, went and got some beers, had a good night. But the next day, 6 of those blokes messaged me individually and said, thank you so much for last night. It's exactly what I needed. I'm actually really struggling. Can we catch up and have a chat? So that 2 minutes of the night before was super uncomfortable. It was really, really hard for me to do. But the next morning, every single one of those mates reached out to me individually and said, I actually really, really appreciate what you did. And it broke the ice between us. So then whenever they're struggling, they know that I'm someone that has some sort of empathy for mental health. So they can come to me and I can go to them. So having those hard conversations for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes, can change the entire relationship that you have with your mates, with yourself, with your family, with your friends. And it can ignite something that can really, really change your life and can change other people's lives too. So it's something that we encourage with people at footy clubs and you know, big community, like men's community sheds and stuff like that, is to have a conversation like that. Have a night where you invite your mates over and say, hey, before we watch the footy, I want to chat about this, and just I want to let you boys know that, you know, if you're ever going through some tough times, that I'm here for you. And, you know, if you have 10 mates over, 9 mates might call you a pussy, but I guarantee you 10 mates will text you the next day and say, mate, I'm so glad you brought that up. I've been struggling. Let's catch up for a coffee. Let's catch up for a beer. I want to chat about what I've been going through. it's such a powerful thing. It's such a simplistic thing you can do that can just completely change lives. So that's what we try and encourage people to do to their group of mates. And then hopefully they can carry on to another group of mates, and we can really make this conversation something that is just completely normal.
Yeah, it's just about creating that safe environment, because now by doing that, your friends know, okay, I can go to him, I can talk about my feelings. Whereas before they're like, oh, I can't talk about my feelings. They'll call me a pussy.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's and we did a post on the Shaka a few months ago that bring up mental health with your friends. You may be called a pussy, but it could change your life, or it could change their life. And I'm happy to be called a pussy for 10 minutes, because I know that the next day they're going to text me. I know that they are, and it's happened before. I've got proof of it happening before. So I'm able to put myself in that position to be called a pussy and be told to harden up. And none of my mates would say that to me now, because they don't believe that. They don't believe that's a stigma. They don't believe that's true at all. I've got some incredible mates that I can call up right now and say I'm struggling, and they'll be here in 5 minutes. I can call a mate crying, and he'd be like, "All right, where are you? Let's catch up." It's a crazy thing to think about, because 10 years, if I called my mate crying, he'd probably hang up on me. He'd probably be like, "Weir, he's lost his plot again. He's fucking crazy. He's being a pussy. He's being a big girl." But now it's completely changed, and that's what we want. That's what we want for these blokes to be able to call their mate if they're really struggling, and saying, "Mate, I don't know what to do. I'm completely lost. I'm sitting in my car in the bush. Can you come and see me?" And for that mate to be able to go, "Yep, no worries. I'll be there soon." It's such a simplistic thing when you think about it, but doing it is so much harder.
You just got to put in perspective. Would you rather, be called a pussy for however long, or lose a mate to suicide?
Exactly right. And I think, we often see it on social media with people that we lose to suicide, and it's a really, really scary thing to talk about. But often people say he was so happy, or he was really, really calm. I saw him yesterday and he was in a really, really good mood. And most of the time they're in a really good mood because they've accepted what they want to do, and they've accepted some sort of fate. And that goes back to what I was feeling back in the car that day. I felt I accepted something, and finally I'd made the right decision about something. Finally, I'd done something that gave me some sort of comfort. I'd made the decision that I wanted to make. And, it's such a scary thought, but when you think back at your mates that you lose through suicide, and how happy they were the day before, that they weren't happy, that that they were absolutely terrified. They were, that they had made the decision already. They knew what they were going to do the next day. And if only such a crazy sort of sentence. If only if I said this, if only I said that. If we can do that 10 months before those feelings even come through, and have that conversation, and the first thought of your mate is, let's go talk to someone before I get to this point. Let's go talk to my mate before I get to this point of no return. So it's it's a really, really scary thought of what people are going through before they do this, and what we could do and what we should have done, and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, we can't blame ourselves, and we can't say, I should have done more, because that would just destroy us. But, if we can start it now and have that mental conversation now, even though we may not even need it, our mates might be absolutely loving life and on top of the world. But if we can say to them now, I know you're loving life, I know you're on top of the world, you don't have depression, you don't have this, but if this ever happens, and if you ever get to the point of being in a spot you don't want to be, then just remember that I'm here, and that you can talk to me. And they might think, okay, yep, no worries. And then 2 years later, they're at a point where they feel shit, they're at the bottom, and they think back to that moment. They think, I remember 2 years ago that Sean said I can talk to him, so I'm going to give him a call. So it's super important just to remind your mate every single day, every week, whatever state in the world they might be in, that it's okay for them to talk, and that you are open for conversation as well.
Yeah, we need to be proactive, not reactive.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Now, the Shaka symbol, where did that come from?
This is actually probably the coolest story about the entire project. So my little 7-year-old boy, he we were at a playground one day. This was before, obviously before the Shaka Project. And I was sitting down about 30 meters away from the playground, and he came down the slide and he sort of did a flip and pretty much ate shit off the slide. And and I was sitting on this bench, and I sort of considered, I thought, oh, do you reckon I need to go over and see if he's okay? Like, I was being lazy. I'm like, oh, he'll be right. And what happened next was I was sitting there and I looked over, and he stood up, brushed himself off, and he looked over to me because he knew I'd be concerned. He looked over to me and he threw up a Shaka, and I threw up a Shaka back, and then he kept playing. And it was sort of like all good. Yep, all good. And he continued playing. And as soon as he did that, I thought that was a really cool way that we communicated without necessarily using words. And that is exactly what we're about with the Shaka Project, is communicating without using words. So again, as I said at the start, seeing someone with a Shaka t-shirt and giving them a Shaka and automatically knowing that that person has some sort of empathy about mental health, understanding that that person is in your community, and that if you need to talk, that person is able to talk to you, or you're able to talk to them. So that was the start of it. That was the entire reason. I thought this is such a good emblem for being able to throw up a Shaka and just, check in. All good, bro? Yep, all good. I have people now that text me just the Shaka, like the emoji. They don't even ask me if I'm okay. They'll just send me a Shaka, and I'll just say, yep, all good, thanks. How are you? Automatically I know the Shaka means, are you all good? So it's probably the coolest part of the entire project, to be honest. It was such as soon as he did that, I thought that is so cool that we can communicate, and he can tell me that he's okay, and then continue playing without actually me going over or him running over and being upset. He just threw up a Shaka and continued playing. So it was, it was pretty cool. It was something that I always remember, and it was such a important way to, start that conversation with people. And now, as the same thing with the messages, everybody, whenever they see me, they throw up a Shaka. Shaka is sort of like a identifier tool now. If you see a Shaka, you sort of identify it straight to mental health, which is amazing. I was on a chat this morning on Instagram, and someone asked me what's the most amazing thing that's happened with the project. And probably one of the most amazing things is we've had about 7 or 8 people get tattoos of the Shaka with our slogan, all good, bro. So, and that's just like amazing to me. That's just incredible that they've felt so much part of the community that they've got it inked on their skin, and I've got tattoos all over my body. I love tattoos, and I love my Ford Ranger, but I'd never get Ford tattooed on me. But, these people are so committed to our community and to our message that they've got it inked on their skin. And I think that's just absolutely incredible. It's so overwhelming to see these people do these kinds of things. And straight away, that's a conversation started too. If they're out and someone sees a Shaka tattoo, they're going to ask what's the Shaka about? It's about mental health. It starts that conversation. It starts that talk and that dialect between people about mental health, about suicide awareness. So it's just been absolutely incredible. And the logo is something that I think if we didn't have the logo, it would be half the message that we've got right now. It's absolutely amazing.
Such a cool story. Are you going to get the Shaka tattooed on you?
I definitely am. I need to decide where I'm going to put it. I don't have much room left on my body, and I want it to sort of be in a spot where everybody can see it. But my arms are done, legs are done, so I'm not really sure where I'm going to put it. I'm definitely not getting it on my face, but I'll definitely get it one day. Absolutely.
It's such a cool gesture, especially because men, we just want to keep it simple, and just doing a Shaka, bro, is simple as.
Yeah, very simple, and that's the whole, when we were creating it, we just thought simple Shaka, that's it. Even with our merchandise, we have just a Shaka logo, and now all good, bro. We don't go all fancy and get all different styles and all that sort of stuff. It's one message, one brand, one conversation starter. And we had a guy contact. Actually, no, we met him in New South Wales. We did a New South Wales tour back in April, and we met this guy in where was he? Newcastle. And he said he was at a pub in regional New South Wales, and he walked past the pub window in his Shaka jumper, and he looked in a window, and there was three blokes in there having a beer, all with Shaka jumpers on. So he knocked on the window, gave a Shaka, all the boys gave a Shaka, and they just kept walking. And he said it was the most amazing thing because automatically he was walking by himself, and automatically he knew that there was three blokes in there that if he needed to, he could walk into that pub and straight away make a connection. And I think that's pretty amazing because we often, especially in the pub environment, you walk in, especially the bloke that masculinity kicks in, oh, look, those fucking boys over there, or that bloke over there, he's a big fucker, or he looks like a dickhead. But as soon as you see someone with the Shaka t-shirt on, you may not even know them. You may not have any sort of relationship with them. You can automatically go up and have a conversation and just start talking. I went to a cafe in Torquay, which is about an hour away from Ballarat, down the beach. And I walked in, and the person behind the counter serving the coffee was wearing a Shaka t-shirt. And that was pretty amazing. It was the first time I'd seen a Shaka t-shirt and public. And I ordered my coffee and said, "Oh, nice t-shirt, by the way." And they said, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's this mental health thing, and it's a really cool brand." And he looked up, and I had a Shaka beanie on. He said, "Oh, you got a beanie too?" And then he looked at me, he's like, "Wait, you're Sean." And we were able to have we had a massive cuddle, and we're like, "Oh, how are you, mate?" And we still chat to this day. Like, we just created a friendship straight away, and that's exactly what we want. Like, we want that connection between people, that they can go up to a random bloke wearing a Shaka t-shirt at the pub and say, we're part of this great community called the Shaka Project. Let me buy you a beer, or let's have a chat, or, let's become mates. Let's go to the gym together. All that sort of stuff that just creates so much conversation it's exactly what we want.
That's awesome. And the community you've built sounds fucking amazing, eh?
Oh, it's amazing, man. It's the stories that we hear from all over the country, from Western Australia to Northern Territory. Someone sent me a video just yesterday, actually. They were in Castlemaine, which is about 45 minutes away from here, walking through a supermarket, and they saw two people with Shaka jumpers. And even in our hometown of Ballarat here, I always drive around and see like Shaka stickers on back of cars and stuff like that. It's just surreal. It's just it's so awesome to see all these different people get behind the message and behind that conversation. It's so cool.
Where's your mission or kind of vision of where you want to take it all?
We just want to continue the education part of it. So we're doing presentations now in footy clubs, schools, and community organisations and stuff like that too. So our big passion is to continue that on, to get around to as many people as we possibly can. And obviously our content, our social media is a big part of how we grow and reach as many people as we can. So continuing to grow that through podcasts and through video content and through different aspects and avenues is super important to us. But to be able to go into the communities and talk about this and to ignite people to talk about it as well, that's what we're really, really passionate about. If we didn't sell another bit of merchandise forever, we'd be happy, as long as we could go to a footy club in New South Wales and get 50 blokes at the footy club talking about mental health. We'd rather do that than do anything else. So that's our next 12 months. We've got a lot of events coming up. Touch wood, COVID doesn't disrupt any of them coming up, but we want to get around Victoria, do another regional tour around Victoria, go to New South Wales again, go through WA, South Australia, Queensland, all that sort of stuff, and just get to as many blokes as we possibly can.
Man, that is awesome, eh? Like, being able to have an impact on someone's life is such a great feeling.
It is, yeah. And like, just having that, I think the best thing about doing presentations is the stuff that you don't see. So when we do a presentation, say to a footy club, we always have people come up to us and say, "Oh, that was great. That was awesome. Thanks so much. Really appreciated it." But then we don't see what happens after that. But the great things that happen after that are what we don't see. We don't see that one of the blokes goes home and texts one of his mates that he hasn't seen in a couple of years and checks in with him. We don't see any of that stuff. We don't see that the next weekend one of their mates says, "Oh, I'm really, really buddy, I've had a tough week. Let's go have a few beers. And that mate says, no, I don't think we should have a few beers. I think you should come over. We'll have 1 or 2 beers at mine, watch the footy. We won't go out. We don't see any of that stuff. And that's all the amazing stuff that we get to think about. And the roll-on effect of the conversations that we have and the conversations that we ignite with footy clubs and men's sheds and stuff like that is absolutely incredible. We've done some talks at schools, and we've had school kids reach out to us and say thank you so much for coming and talking. It was amazing. We had parents of kids. I had a parent contact me about 2 months ago. I did a presentation at the school, and the parent reached out to me and said, my kid just came home and he's a completely new kid. He heard your story about what you went through with high school, and now he wants to be a PT. Now he wants to chase his dreams. Now he knows that all this diversity that he's going through, he can get through it. So thank you so much. All that sort of stuff is just like amazing. It's such a gift for us. And it's very simple for us to do. It's easy for us to do. We've practiced it and done it many times. But the effect that it can have and the flow-on effect it can have on people's life, especially the stuff that we don't see, that's exactly why we do it.
Yeah. As again, we come back to all it is about being authentic and giving people the tools to be able to deal with these struggles in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Just continuing that passion about it and being authentic as possible and being real to what you want to do and real to your brand, real to your message, being kind, not being a dick, as we say.
Yeah.
Just being a genuinely good person. And, obviously it's tough to be 100% on ball all the time. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to be the best person in the world at all times, but we can do our best. We can give it a pretty red hot crack. And as long as we're looking after people and looking after ourselves and trying to display some sort of empathy and kindness towards every single person that you come past, no matter what situation they're in, no matter who they are, no matter what they've got going on in their life, it gives us no right to be unkind to that person. It gives us no right to be, nasty towards that person. If we can just give them the time of day, give them, some sort of kindness and empathy, I think that the world would be a much, much better place.
Spot on. Now, Sean, as we start to wrap up, what's, I guess, a piece of advice you could give to the listeners, especially for these tough times if they're struggling with mental health?
If you're struggling with mental health or with any sort of feelings, it's just to really making sure you're looking after yourself and you love yourself first, you love yourself most. And that's something that we push a whole lot with the Shaka Project. It's great to look after your mates. It's awesome. We encourage it. But there's no point looking after your mates if you're not looking after yourself. And we also encourage, the message that it's not selfish to look after yourself. It's not selfish to love yourself. There's nothing I love better than going away completely alone. I might go to the beach by myself and go for a surf. And I won't take the kids. I won't sort of take a mate. It'll just be me. Go away and have a surf and just take some time. And from the outside, I might look really selfish. But if I don't do things like that, then I'm not going to be the best father for my kids. If I don't have those mental health breaks and those things that I need to do for my mental health, then I'm going to get home and be an absolute miserable father to my kids. So I need to do those things. I need to be selfish sometimes. I need to look after myself, because if I'm not giving my kids the best version of myself, then they're going to suffer. So that is something really, really important that we try and push, is to make sure that you're putting more effort into loving yourself, into looking after yourself, than you are to look after other people. Because at the end of the day, if you're looking after all your mates and you're checking in with all your mates and being that bloke that everybody can talk to, that's amazing, absolutely incredible, be that bloke. But if you're not looking after yourself, there's no point, because they'll get to a point, get to a time where you hit rock bottom and you've spent all your energy looking after everybody else, and you can't give yourself the time or the energy to look after yourself or to save yourself. So that'd probably be my message, is just to continue to check in with yourself every day. You know, it takes 5 minutes to think about it. I like to write my thoughts down, and you know, I've got a diary and I write in my diary, or you know, I'll read a book and just take 10 minutes just to calm down, get off social media for a few days. Whatever you need to do, whether it be, you know, doing any of that stuff, going for a surf, going to the gym, whatever it is, just do it, and don't feel bad for doing something for yourself. Don't feel bad for taking time off to get yourself back on track. It's completely normal. It's completely okay to have all these feelings, and it's definitely not selfish to look after yourself.
Yeah, that's a great message, and it's so true. Like, you can't help people. You can't be the best father if you're not looking after yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, it's something that I didn't realize until I became a father, and there was times where I used to get home from work and I'd be grumpy ass, and you know, I could see it affected my kids. There was one time where my daughter looked at me and said, "Daddy's so angry," and like, I've never cried so much in my life, mate. Like, it absolutely broke my heart when she said that to me. And straight away when she said that, I thought, I need to look after myself, because I'm getting home from work. I'm you know, I'm frustrated, I'm stressed, I'm angry, and I'm taking it out of my kids. It's not my kids' fault that I've had a shit day. It's not my kids' fault that I'm not looking after myself. It's my fault. It's my fault that I'm doing all this sort of stuff. So I need to do what I need to do to make myself a better dad. And it's not about making myself a happier dad. It's about making myself more aware of my behaviors and looking after myself, so I can go home and I can be the best possible dad, and I can give them the best version of myself as I possibly can as well. Exactly.
Now, Sean, how do you define success?
Doing something you love to do. That's the only way I define success. If someone gave me $10 million to be a painter, I hate painting. The wall behind me, this was painted by some kids from a school around here. We made them come and paint it. I absolutely hate painting. Like, just, it's the worst fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
But if someone came to me and said, "We'll pay you $10 million to be a painter for a month," I wouldn't do it. 100% would not do it, because I just genuinely do not love it. If I could do gyms and the Shaka Project for the rest of my life for zero income, I would continue to do it. And that's something that is so important, that you have to do something that you love. It doesn't matter how hard you work. I think the word hustle is just complete bullshit. I hate it. I think if you have a passion for something and you genuinely love doing something, that you don't have to hustle. You don't have to work hard. You don't have to stay up late and get up early and do all the hustling and the grind and all that sort of stuff. If you're doing something you don't like doing, then it's hustle. If you're doing something that you love to do, it's just life. It's just what you want to do. It's something that you genuinely love. Then you don't have to work all these hours. You don't have to hustle. You don't have to grind, all that sort of stuff. So success to me is waking up in the morning and being genuinely happy and genuinely excited to do what you want to do for that day. Obviously, there's going to be moments where you think, "Oh, this is really hard," or "I'm a bit stressed," or this is tough. I'd rather be doing something else right now. There's always going to be moments like that. But at the end of the day, if you look at the big picture of what you're doing and what you're all about, and you love it, then you're successful.
Yeah, you don't work a day in the life if you love what you do.
Exactly right. And I think when I first started the gyms, I was all about hustle and grind. And, you know, I used to work until 11 o'clock at night every single day and get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning and do it all again. And I thought that was the right thing to do until I burnt out and until I started to get really, really sick and my mental health suffered. And the one thing that I reflected back on when I had kids was, you know, when I got home, those kids didn't give a shit how many hours I worked. They didn't care about how much I hustled or how much I worked or how hard I worked. They don't care about that. All they care about is dad going out and kick the footy with them or dad, you know, playing a game with them or whatever it might be. That's all they care about. And I used to have this mindset of I need to go to work, hustle, grind for my kids. My kids don't give a shit, mate. My kids don't care how much money I've got in the bank. My kids don't care how flashy my car is. all they care about is, I hope Dad comes home and kicks the footy with me. I hope, we get to go to the beach one day with Dad. That's all they care about. And when you change the way you think about that, your work, your career, everything that you love doing becomes so much easier, and you become a lot more relaxed when it comes to the idea that you need to be making a shitload of money, or the idea that you need to have a big grand old house and this big flashy car. All that sort of stuff goes away when you remember that none of that stuff actually matters. The only thing that matters is that you go home that night and you're a happy dad. You're a good dad. Your kids love you for who you are, and they're in a happy home. And that is success for me, to be able to wake up on a Sunday and my kids are there, and not have to worry about about doing all these things to impress them, because they don't give a shit.
No, and as humans,
they're fed.
Yeah, we love to overcomplicate everything, but at the end of the day, the simplest things in life are having those human connections is all that matters.
Absolutely. And if you can just wake up and be happy with where you are, and again, even if you're not happy, if you're going through mental health things, and you're going through these feelings, but you genuinely love what you're doing, then you succeeded. And I know so many people that are in jobs that they hate, and the reason they're in the job is because they're getting paid really well. And out of all these friends, I've probably seen 2 of them quit their job completely, and now they're the happiest they've ever been. They've got new jobs. They're not getting paid as much, but they're genuinely happy. And you can ask them, they'll tell you every time it's completely worth it. It's completely worth not having the bigger paycheck to be happy. That is to work at a job they hate, doing something they hate doing for really, really great money, when they'd rather be doing something they love to do for less money. So we need to change that mind frame, that mindset about hustle, grind, getting as much money, working all those hours, all that sort of stuff. Just do what you love to do. That's it.
Yeah. And then as parents too, if you're so focused on hustling, you're going to miss those special moments with your kids growing up too.
Oh, 100%, mate. The amount of times, when I was in this mind frame of hustle, work, grind, all that sort of stuff, and I missed things. I missed, soccer practice and this and that. And I always thought, this is for the kids. This is what I need to do for the kids. And then again, I realized that, my 7-year-old at soccer practice when I wasn't there, wasn't thinking, oh, it's all right, Dad's just out making heaps of money for me. He was thinking, why the fuck isn't Dad here? That's all he was thinking about. And I used to think the same thing when I was a kid, when my dad wasn't at footy, or when my dad didn't rock up to something. I wouldn't care about, oh, he has to be at work because he's making money and it's for the best. That's what he needs to do for my future. I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about, why isn't Dad here? There's no other reason why Dad shouldn't be here. He should be here. So you've got to think about that. Whether you're a parent or whether you're just a person, going to a mate's 21st, or going to catch up with a mate on a Friday afternoon, or going out for brekkie, and not putting your work before your friendships, or your work before your relationships is something so important, to be able to have that balance, and to have that something that you love to do so much that you can balance it between your family, your friends, and your career as well.
Yeah. Now, last question. When your time's all up and done on this earth, what would you like to be remembered for?
I think being a big softie. I think that's, and that's, saying that in a way that, if someone could stand up at my funeral and say that I remember the time that I was able to speak to Sean and he was completely empathetic about what I was going through, or he allowed me to talk about my feelings. And I think having that emotional intelligence and having those feelings and be able to have open conversations and being empathetic, I think that's one thing I'd love to be remembered for. And any act of kindness that I might have done, or anything that's made someone else feel better, whether it be something major or something small, that's all I want to be remembered for. I don't think anybody at someone's funeral says, "Oh, I love how much money this bloke had. I love how many cool cars he had." Nobody cares about that shit. I'd rather be remembered for, this guy was so kind to me, or I remember this time that he was so generous to me and my family, or he was, had a great smile, he had a great attitude, that sort of stuff. That's what I want to be remembered for. None of the the stuff that people think is the right thing, of this big superiority thing. I think it's for the person you are and for the person that you've helped as well.
That's awesome. Well, I guess we'll wrap up the podcast here. Thank you so much, Sean, for taking time out of your day to jump on this potty. I really appreciate it, man.
No, thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate it.
I love what you're doing for all the listeners. Check him out, Shaka Project, Instagram, Facebook. What else are you on?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Our main platform is the Instagram, but yeah, pretty much Google the Shaka Project and you'll see everything there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, check him out. He's doing amazing things. Thank you once again. Super grateful for all the listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.